Hello and welcome. I hope you're safe and well. In today's exciting episode, I make a new jacket. It's Burda 5870 and I make it two-sided. So it's black and starry on one side and it's got a floral, sort of vintage looking floral on the other side, and it's pretty fabulous.
It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket.
So I'm finally making one of the mock-ups. So it's a Chanel style jacket and it's got a two-part front and there's no side seam. So it's got a center front part, a side panel, then a big whole back part. A is like there's one that's short cropped and the other one it has longer sleeves, and it does have buttons down the front, but I'm not doing that because the smaller size was a size 8 and I generally make a size 6, so I've just sort of cut the buttons off and made it so that it's a open front jacket. So I traced out the pattern and I cut out all the pieces, and as you can see there's two parts on the front piece. You can do a pocket. If you want to do the pocket, you have to sew those, pin the pocket bits on first, one to the top, one to the bottom, and sew the front bit into one whole piece with the pocket, and then tuck the pocket inside, and then you sew them all together. But I'm not doing a pocket, so I'll just pin everything together. And so all the torso is pinned together, just the long seams, not the shoulders yet. And I'm making it two-sided, reversible. So I've got the starry fabric and I've cut out the same set of pieces in the starry fabric as well. So I've just pinned them all together and I've machine sewed them. And now that they're machine sewed, just like it's pretty straightforward. The on the simplicity side, it says that it on the back of the instructions, it says that it's average. I don't know that it's that complex. I think it's kind of pretty easy for a beginner, but you do have to set sleeves, so maybe that's why they upped it to an average. Anyway, so I machine sewed all the long seams together, then I pressed them open. And now that that is done, I have to go along and hand stitch down the seam allowance. If you're doing it one-sided, then you probably wouldn't have to do this, or you can just top stitch it on your machine. But I can't stand that, so I'm going to do it by hand. Before I do that, I will do the sleeves. So there's one big part of the sleeves, and then there's cuffs as well. So the cuffs, I'm going to, like, one is for one side, the other is for the other side. So I have to sew them together. And then, so I sewed the cuffs together, then I sewed the cuffs onto the colourful side of the sleeve, and then I sewed in the dart that goes on the elbow of the sleeves, and then I sewed the underarm seam together, and then I just pressed everything down, and now I just have to hand stitch down the seam allowance. I think a lot of people would say you don't have to do that, but I just make jackets the tailoring way. And so yeah, I went and watched something while I had something on the television, my laptop, while I was hand stitching all of those down. And once I'd done all the long seams, I pinned them together at the shoulders, the top of the front and the top of the back, and I machine sewed them together. And I also hand stitched the seam allowance on the sleeves and then carefully pulled them through. You'll notice that the cuff is on the colourful one, both sides of the cuff. That just means that I only have to do one seam by hand when I do the whole thing through. So now that that's done, this is me showing you, now that it's done, I have to set the sleeves. So there's a notch at the center top, notch at the center bottom, and then you fill in the bottom half, and then you carefully fill in the top. You sort of fill in the bottom 2/3, and then you fill in the top third, which is the tricky part. If you can't do it just by pinning them, then you can hand stitch a gather in the shoulder part and then sort of put it in that way. And then so it was pinned in, so I machine sewed it. And once I'd machine sewed it, then it's so much clearer on this jacket, obviously a different jacket, but you push both sides of the seam allowance up into the sleeve and I hand stitch it from the outside, and then normally I hand stitch from the inside too, but just because this is a cotton jacket and it's reversible, I just did it once from the outside and a little bit extra under the underarm so that it didn't sort of flick up. But yeah, I did that on both sides. And obviously I clipped the curves under the arm so that when I was pushing the seam allowance back up into the sleeve, it sat correctly. And so there you go, you can see my stitches. There's not a lot of stitches there, but it's enough to hold it back. And there we go. So we have both sides of them. And obviously I did the same amount of stitching back the seam allowance on the black starry side as well. I wish I'd taken a little bit more time to do the placement of the front bits because they're a little bit too slightly off. I think I should have either made them symmetrical or completely different, but they're sort of the same and it looks like a mistake. Anyway, so now I'm going to pin the two sides together. This is called bag lining, where you have the outside and the inside are the exact same, and you just pin them all around, and then I'm going to, once they're sewn around all the edges, I'm going to very carefully pull the entire two jackets through one of the sleeves. So this is going to be fun, but yeah, you've got to make sure you pin them correctly, get all the corners correct, get the collarless neckline correct. So yeah, make sure you pin them correctly and make sure the sleeves are folded into the middle so you don't accidentally sew them as well, obviously. So then you machine sew it, and once you're done, you clip the curves. You cut the corners just so that when you turn it out, it will sit properly. And then you clip they're not squares. I've just cut them down a little bit so they'll turn out correctly. And you just clip the neckline because it's all a curve. So you need to just clip it so that when you turn it out, it will sit properly. So then you do, it's really tricky pulling it through. I wouldn't try this if you're using a thicker fabric, but it worked fine because they're both cottons. Like I wouldn't do this if it was tweed with a netting back and silk, then I would make it a different way. I would make it the traditional tailoring way, but this is considered the dressmaking way, and I'm using fashion fabrics, so it's okay. But so I very carefully pulled it through, and then once you've got it at the octopus stage where everything is right side, so you've got forearms at this point, you have to tuck the black side or the lining side back into the jackets. And there we go. And then I've just pinned all the layers together, and you have to top stitch. But again, I hate machine top stitching. It doesn't look good on me at all. If you're a standard size or a larger size, it looks good. But yeah, if you're a smaller size, yeah, I don't. I think pin stitching or like hand stitching looks better. So then I watched something else on my laptop, and I did loads of hand stitching, and of course I also had to do that last bit of hand stitching on the black side of the cuffs, and it's just the same way that you finish a shirt cuff. And here we go. Goodness, this took me seriously all day to make. I wasn't rushing or anything, but there's just so much. I always forget how much hand stitching I do because I was like, it's not a tweed jacket. It won't take as long. But I end up doing almost the same amount of hand stitching on a cotton jacket as I do on a tweed one, because of all the seam allowance that I hand stitch back. And all the top stitching that I do by hand. So yeah, it's a nice jacket. I do think it's a really, really nice jacket. And I find the Burda style, like I want to like Burda patterns. I want to like them so much. There's a couple that are really good that I've used. But I find the instructions really confusing, and the way they draw the pattern, like I know, like I've done over 100 jackets, I know what's the front of a sleeve and what's the back of a sleeve, but it's just I just found it really confusing. I was double guessing myself, and I was like, but I know how to make a jacket. It's just really unclear. Normally the back has a double notch and the front has a single notch. On this one, because it's a European pattern, they just don't have notches at all. There's like one notch at the top of the sleeve, and you just have to like randomly guess where the rest are. Plus there's darts on the one-piece sleeve. I prefer a two-piece sleeve so that you don't have to have any darts, and this is the second side. I really do not like the jacket closed. I think because it's a two-piece front, which makes it feel like a denim jacket, it kind of seems odd that it doesn't have a collar. And because I do not have any shoulders at all, I like it like this actually, with the front of it turned back. It looks a bit 80s. And yeah, I wasn't sure I kind of used this fabric as a second fabric because I was like, oh, I'll always wear it the other way. But I actually like it with this Galaxy one with the colourful collar and cuffs turned back. I really like it. I'm not a fan of the back. It's too broad. I like a fitted back. I think because I'm such a teensy-weensy person, and a fitted jacket just is something that actually makes me look like I'm not a child. And I turned 50 last month. Like, yes, really. No one believes me, but I did. And yeah, I went to the grocery store, and this little old gentleman couldn't quite reach the store. People had put the meals for one up high. So I was standing there helping him. And I swear he thought I was like a teenager or something. I was like, dude, I'm old. I'm super old now. And anyway, so yes, I feel like I personally, because of my figure type, I really need a fitted jacket. But if you've got shoulders, this is a relatively simple jacket to make, and it's quite nice, and it is much easier. I know a lot of you think the Vogue 7975 jacket looks a bit daunting. I do think this one would be easier, but Burda pattern instructions can be a little confusing, and the way they draw the pattern, as I said, they don't have a double notch at the back, and for that reason I find the Vogue 7975 still an easier pattern. Maybe that's just me. If you do want a Chanel style jacket and you're not sure about setting sleeves, I think the Burda, this is a different Burda pattern, Burda 6123, and it's got dolman sleeves, which means the whole of the front piece and the front of the arm is one piece, and then the whole of the back and including the arm is another piece. So it's just three, front left, front right, and back. 3 giant pieces that you have to sew together. So if you're not sure about sleeves, I think that would probably be more, it's also easy rather than average or intermediate. But this is a beautiful jacket, but I do think you need shoulders to make it work. And I don't. Also, the smallest size was an 8, not a 6. But yeah, in general, it's easy to put together. Everything fits together. And yeah, I really like it. I'm not sure that I'd make another one, but I'm glad I made this one. And yeah, I think the next one that I'll do will be probably one of my standard Chanel style jackets, either the McCall or the Vogue 7975. And then after that, I think I'm going to do the Burda 6123, but I'm going to do lots of sequins all over it. It's going to be fabulous. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you've been inspired to make a Chanel style jacket of your own. They are fabulous, or a reversible one. I really like this combination of the turned back collar and the cuffs in the colourful on the black with the stars on it. It's quite cool. Anyway, thanks for watching and happy sewing.